Well, I'm Steve, and this is the What If podcast, the podcast about movies that do not exist.
And I'm Meg, and it's nice to be here. Thank you for Twitch for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Twitch. Thank you, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, for letting us use Twitch.
Yes, we love you, Bezos. Prime Day's coming up, and you know we will be on it.
I don't actually know if I will be on it.
We know Mom will be on it.
Yeah. Our close relations will be on it, that's for sure.
Okay, so today, if you're not familiar with the show, shout out to our one viewer who probably is not familiar with the show. Our tagline is the show about movies that don't exist.
Yeah, so this is sort of like a theoretical movie podcast. We go over some of our favorite things in movies, things we like about movies, and we talk about them for around 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, so you have us for your next 30 to 45 minutes of your Sunday night. So today we are going into a topic that we are both pretty interested in, I'd say, and it's tropes.
Yep.
Movie tropes.
That is tropes. And if you're not aware, tropes are sort of like, I guess things that are like cliches in movies almost. Cliche is a negative term for it, but it's sort of a recurring plot element or visual device used in movies often that is sort of drawn from other movies. It's either played up in different movies or like a reference to another movie. I don't know. Do you have any examples of that, Meg, or anything to add?
The most important thing to talk about when you're talking about tropes is how they are unavoidable. When someone says cliche, it's a negative term. It's something you don't want to do is be cliche, especially when you're making a movie. So people always say, like, I'm going to make a movie that has 0 tropes. So first off, you can't have a hero, because that's a trope. You can't have a villain, because that's a trope. You can't do all these things because they have been done before, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I'll try to think of some examples of tropes. Some of these might be a bit cliche. Like the villain giving like a big speech right before he's about to execute the hero. Like things like that, explaining your motivations. In westerns, like the lone hero that rides into town. It's things that are used over and over again. Things that you expect to see in movies, pretty much.
Yeah. So with that in the definition, we're going to move into some of our favorite tropes that we like to see reoccurring in movies. So I think I'll start. In some of my favorite pieces of film and TV are cartoons. And cartoons, especially the older ones, we're thinking like Looney Tunes and all that, they rely heavily on tropes. And it's a thing, to make their primary audience, which is children, laugh and have that kind of stability throughout TV. And when we think of TV and movies like Looney Tunes, it's riddled with tropes, especially when we think about Bugs Bunny. What's up, Doc is kind of become a trope within itself. Just reoccurring lines, reoccurring catchphrases, the
Anvils falling. Frying pan hitting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, senseless violence. When they run into the air and they buffer for a couple seconds before falling straight down, that's a good trope. And it makes it better for me when you can kind of predict things that are going to happen in cartoons. And I imagine if you're a child, it's pretty exciting every time you see Wile E. Coyote get crushed by an anvil.
Yeah, Looney Tunes is interesting because it seems to have sort of invented all these cartoon tropes. Like, I don't really know where all, like, the sort of slapstick stuff came from. Like, it seemed to have invented, like, getting hit by, like, a pie or, like, an anvil and things like that. So, I guess Looney Tunes were pretty influential in the fact that they invented all these different, tools to use for cartoons.
Yeah, when I think of something that's almost equated to the type of humor in Looney Tunes, it's movies in the silent film genre. Like when you think about Charlie Chaplin, it was a lot of visual and physical humor just because of that roadblock they had without sound. So it had to be pies to the faces to the Three Musketeers or whatever, Three Stooges, and just visual, like falling down, falling over, falling off of things, getting punched in the face. It was just things that had to be done in order to convey comedy throughout their format, and those things kind of transferred over.
Yeah, now was Looney Tunes one of the first cartoons? Do you know when it actually came out? Was it like, I want to say like 50s and 60s, but I don't really know.
I don't
Because I know that like Steamboat Willie was probably the first, at least the first from Disney,
yeah,
which I assume is
which
the first in the
war,
world.
war propaganda.
Was it propaganda?
War propaganda to join the Navy, I think.
Really? Is that why Donald Duck is a sailor?
And Donald Duck, yeah, I think so. I could be completely wrong with that, but I believe that Walt Disney was making little clips for the Army.
Hmm. By the way, Meg, I got a question for you. This is sort of a tangent. Donald Duck or Daffy Duck? Which one do you think is better? Who's the better duck?
The better duck.
Yeah.
You know, Daffy Duck has the snark. Donald Duck has the temper. I think they are very similar in themselves, and that almost gives a bad name to cartoon ducks.
Actually, here's a fun fact about Daffy Duck. He was actually, or Donald Duck, excuse me. They're very similar names, but very different characters. Very complex, emotional characters that have different nuances and intricacies.
It's almost not fair to compare them.
You know, Donald Duck was actually banned in a Scandinavian country because he didn't wear pants.
Is that true?
Yeah, it was considered too lewd for children.
Too vulgar.
I don't know if that's actually true or if that's just like sort of a
Wives' tale.
an old wives' tale of the
urban legend revolving around Donald Duck.
Of the very prudent Scandinavian countries, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't
but
really know.
Did they play Looney Tunes? Because when you think about Daffy Duck, he's not wearing any clothes.
Daffy Duck's wearing no clothes, but I don't know. Maybe the issue with Donald Duck was that he was wearing some clothes.
Like full nudity versus.
And so it draws to the mind, why isn't he wearing all his clothes? Because at least Mickey Mouse is wearing pants, so there's a stark contrast between pants to Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Because Mickey Mouse just was wearing suspenders and no shirt, correct? If I'm imagining this in my mind correctly.
I don't know about. Does he wear
Does Mickey Mouse not? I thought he just wore red suspenders, right? Mickey Mouse? This is crazy. Mickey Mouse is one of the most popular characters on the planet.
Steamboat Willie might have worn suspenders, but I'm not sure.
No, I think all Mickey Mouse is always wearing suspenders.
You want to bet on that?
Yeah, you want to do an on-air bet?
Yeah, let me do a quick look-see to see if Mickey Mouse wears suspenders.
Yeah, just like Mario. They both wear. Mickey Mouse wears suspenders and gloves and shoes.
And red.
I don't know. I think it might change depending on like the cartoon.
Yeah.
Depending on if red dye was driven up, if the price went through the roof because of the war or something.
I'm gonna give you just a couple seconds here to really, really think about your answer. Really picture Mickey Mouse in your mind's eye.
Mickey Mouse absolutely wears suspenders. He has to.
Yeah, this is a part in the show that if we were more tech savvy and more prepared,
We would show an image of.
we would put up an image of Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Disneyland.
Oh, I totally agree.
And you know the thing is, I don't like to embarrass my brother on air or in person for that matter.
You got a picture of him?
But here's a picture of Mickey Mouse.
Why are there two white buttons if they're not suspenders?
They're not suspenders.
I would encourage our viewers to pull up a picture of Mickey Mouse and wonder why he's not wearing suspenders.
Or if you're part of, any generation since World War II, you can picture Mickey Mouse in your mind's eye.
What's he wearing?
I would just like to point out to the viewers that Steven just pressed very hard down on my locked iPhone and nothing happened.
Yeah, I don't have an iPhone, so I don't really know how to do it. You know what? I don't think I would have been able to draw Mickey Mouse very well if I wasn't looking directly at him.
Yeah, that would be a nice idea for a video, but it would not.
Yeah, but not in an audio podcast.
Not in an audio.
So I'm looking at this picture of Mickey Mouse. I feel like he is wearing suspenders, but due to the limits of animation, he's not.
Yeah, are they like black strapped?
They might be black straps, which blend perfectly into his fur.
I think they're just really, really high-waisted shorts.
They could be, but what are those two white buttons on them? Aren't those where the suspenders connect?
Maybe he was like cooking eggs, and he was separating the yolk.
And he just put them on.
And he just the egg whites fell, and
they are very high-waisted pants. They're up to roughly his chest.
His chest.
They'd be like full pants. Like they'd go down to his ankles if he wore them at an appropriate height.
Maybe that's why the Scandies approved Mickey Mouse
Is
more.
the Scandies the politically correct word for
Is
that?
there a politically not
I just want to make sure that's
way
not
to
like
address
a
the Scandinavians?
I just want to make sure it's not a huge slur against the Scandinavians.
I apologize for our
Scandinavian.
Scandinavian viewers if that was not what I was supposed to call you.
Search Steamboat Willie for me real fast. I want to see if he's wearing suspenders.
And we encourage the viewers to look up Disney characters as well as we're doing this.
Yeah, at least until we figure out how to, on the fly, upload images.
Steamboat Willie. Okay, I'm looking at a picture of Steamboat Willie now. Before I show this to you, do you think that Steamboat Willie's wearing suspenders or not?
I guess not if Mickey Mouse isn't. I think they're the same character.
I'm glad you went with that because he's indeed not wearing suspenders.
Yeah, see, that makes me just think it was the limits of animation. Like, they just couldn't put one more thing in or they'd blow out the animators that were working on it.
They didn't have the manpower to
I
hire a
assume it was
suspenders
just
guy.
Walt Disney just drawing them all.
You think it
drawing
was...
them live as they were aired.
It was like a flip book that he was making on
It was
air.
pretty much just a flip book, and he was just like rapidly throwing new sheets into the thing and looping old ones until he had new images come out.
That's why he's the legend. That's why there's a land dedicated to him.
Yeah, a land and a world.
Yeah.
He started with a world and then downgraded to a land, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was a world and a land.
Yeah. Soon, Walt Disney's empire will expand over the entire planet.
I agree with that, but
And galaxies far, far away, as it does now.
as it does now, and the Guardians of the Galaxy as well. They have ownership over that.
Yeah, they're all over space now and land, which is crazy.
Yeah, land and sea and space.
We should. I feel like Disney owns like 15 out of the top 50 movies every year, probably even more than that.
Yeah, well, with the Fox gain, that's huge. One
Yeah.
of the Fox properties.
Yeah, that's insane. They have Fantastic Four now.
They have,
That's probably the best part about it, is that they own Doctor Doom for
yes.
for tier 4 of
Tier
Marvel.
4. Tier 4 rankings of Marvel.
Honestly, I think the only way Marvel can go forward is if they have Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Doctor Doom, Silver Surfer, and like Galactus. You know what I mean?
We have Doctor Doom. Now we have all the X-Men. That's a whole entire world that we can...
I don't know if they'll be able to work in the X-Men into the established Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know what I mean? I think it'd be tough.
It would be tough because we have the existence of mutants, which was supposed to go back far, far and away, but...
Yeah, I mean, like, because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch already exist, you know?
And they're not mutants.
And they didn't mention that Magneto was their dad, which seems like it should have come up at some point.
It's a sore topic.
You know what I mean? That they know other people who are mutants.
Yeah.
Okay, but we could get back on track. You want to go back to tropes?
Let's go back to tropes.
Back to the purpose of the episode.
It's a reoccurring trope in our show, and it's that we get sidetracked easily.
Yeah, that is a good podcast trope.
Yeah.
The oral tropes, which are not often discussed.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of your favorite tropes.
Okay, do you want to talk about superhero tropes, or do we want to get out of that?
We can talk about superhero tropes for a little bit.
I'm glad that more recently superhero movies have gotten away from having like one big villain trope that like basically the whole movie is just building up this like villain for a third act fight.
Third act fight.
I don't know what I mean. I'm saying that villains are getting more interesting.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think I know.
It's not just like they just tossed in a villain. They say we need a third act, so we need a villain to come in and.
You know, I don't know if you've ever seen this film, but it's Academy Award winning.
Are you talking Suicide Squad?
I'm talking about Suicide Squad by who was that? David Ayer who made that.
Director of Fast and Furious.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's in the third act we have Enchantress, but she turns into a huge fire. No, that was Diablo. She turns into a huge monster.
Yeah, it was unnecessary. Not all superhero movie has to have a big villain, and I'd like to see us step away from that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we just saw Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good for. Spoiler alert if you haven't
Spoiler
seen Far From Home, but Mysterio was awesome as a villain. That was a really good structure, I thought.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of turn in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that we're seeing more human villains.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think where the first two Thor movies kind of fell short was that, they were fighting huge monsters and like dark
Yeah.
elves and destroyers and all
Without
that.
motivation. Like, I just don't want villains with the motivation that's only to destroy, you know what I
You
mean?
need
Or
to
to
kill
conquer.
Thor.
Yeah, like Ronan the Destroyer, for example, in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of Guardians series, but you know, Ego, they had that huge fight at the end.
I thought Ego was decent.
It was decent.
Yeah.
They added
At least it had a more human element in that he was his father. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, spoiler.
Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet. I know it's hot off the presses.
Yeah.
But Guardians 1 had Ronan, but it's not like the first Avengers movie where there's just aliens pouring out of the sky. I think that's what I'm bored of seeing.
I agree. Just like a faceless enemy to fight.
Yeah.
But then again, I do like zombies a lot, and they're just like a meaningless. They're just cannon fodder. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love zombies as an enemy. But I don't know. It's not superheroes fighting zombies though. That's kind of different.
Yeah. I think when you have zombies,
And it'd be cool.
You have to pair them up with regular people, non-superpowered people.
Yeah, but then again, we are reading Deceased right now, which is the
Deceased.
DC Comics zombie line that's out, and that's pretty good.
But superpowered people are kind of going against superpowered zombies. We haven't seen much of a zombie attack.
Yeah, for sure. I think superhero movies are really good when they're paired up with zombie movies. I think that's a combination that works really well together. You know what I mean? Especially when it is super zombies, like you said. Yeah. It can't really be regular zombies because super people can just tromp through them like nothing.
Yeah, if you have Superman versus like a regular run-of-the-mill zombie, it's not going to be too interesting.
Yeah, unless it's like his mom or something.
Unless it's Ma or Pa Kent.
Ma or Pa Kent. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, superhero movies, like action movies in general, I think, we talked about cliches, but for a movie franchise like Fast and Furious, we see, like, reoccurring tropes that don't do any favors to franchises, especially. I haven't really seen any of the Fast and Furious movies, but I have been on the ride at Universal, and I think that kind of makes me an expert.
That probably counts for 2 or 3 of the movies at least, I would imagine.
But the thing is, like, when you read the criticism and when you see parts of the movies, it's like, okay, it's cars, it's fast cars, it's like pretty girls hired just because they're pretty, and it's like, oh, we're family, and it's like you're writing the same movie like 6 times.
Yeah, but sometimes it has. Apparently the last one had like spies in it. I don't know. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, when you're writing movies like that, you have to know your audience. Someone going in to see Fast and Furious 12 isn't going to see like a cinematic masterpiece. They're seeing cars blow up.
Yeah, and just as a clarifier to that, we did just watch Godzilla to watch buildings blow up recently.
We did, and
so we're not necessarily disparaging the fans of Fast and Furious, but I don't know. They're not the movies for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I think if you want to sit down with the boys and watch, car chases, perfect. But if you want to watch like a more human story with more gripping dialogue and plot structures, you have to look at movies that do tropes well.
Yeah, or at least like have knowledge of previous tropes and know like how to work with them well. You know what I mean? Like it's like taking like an old cliche and kind of breaking it out of its normal mold, or shining light on it in a new and interesting way that makes an interesting movie. I think, at least.
Yeah, and going off that point, I think that's where we're seeing horror go now.
You think horror is getting more creative
as
of recent?
Horror is getting pretty creative. I think Jordan Peele, he's kind of he's a big name in the horror industry right now. Fantastic at creating movies that aren't just surface level horror.
Yeah, so what's interesting about horror is that I think horror utilizes some of the most tropes out of any genre. Maybe like horror and Western I'd put as like top 2 tropiest genres. What do you feel about that?
I think, Westerns, I think horror, and I think maybe sci-fi.
I'd put spy over sci-fi, because spy movies are all pretty similar, you know what I mean?
I agree.
Like, here are the types of spy movies. There's a mole in the operation. You know what I mean? I guess that's the only one I can really think of.
The mole in the operation.
The standard
mole
like
is his
eccentric
girlfriend.
ego like villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Bond villains, like
Yeah.
high luxury, tailored suits, special gadgets. You know, all that.
Yeah,
all that
that's why Kingsman was such a good spy movie because it was aware of all the spy tropes and just played with them. You know what I mean? They were just like, it was like talking openly about spy movies, especially in the scene with Samuel L. Jackson and who's the main guy in Kingsman? Not Eggsy.
Eggsy.
It might be Galahad or Lancelot.
His name is Harry in the movie.
It's Colin Firth, maybe.
Maybe.
Perchance,
if you will.
Yeah, there's one point where they're having dinner and they're openly discussing their roles, like the mega villain and the gentleman spy. Kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, that's a very good example of a kind of borderline satire. It's.
Yeah, I think that's lamp shading. Is that lamp shading? Am I using that correctly? Shining a lamp on.
Yeah,
the tropes.
Shining a lamp on. Could be. The thing with spy movies is that I could never really get into them.
Did you see Kingsman?
I've seen Kingsman. I like Kingsman because of the subversion of horror tropes, but I don't think...
Maybe subversion's a better word than lamp shading.
But I don't think... I can't sit through, like, a Mission Impossible or, like, a James Bond film.
Oh, did you see the new Mission Impossible?
I haven't seen it, but I know you're a fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one.
The new Mission Impossible.
That's got Henry Cavill in it.
It does, and
with an awesome mustache.
The double arm pump.
In the trailer of Mission Impossible Fallout, he like charges up his punches by punching twice. That's what Meg's talking about. I think that's the coolest thing ever. Non-ironically, I love that.
It is, and I can get down with Henry Cavill.
I know you're not a Tom Cruise supporter in the slightest.
Not a Tom Cruise fan.
Yeah, I can actually overlook the Scientology for a mean Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about the guy. He's dedicated to every part of his life.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm against Scientology, and if any Scientologists are listening, they can just get out of here right now. But, yeah, I don't know. I can overlook some things with certain actors. If anybody, like, abuses anybody ever, like, they're out. You know what I mean? Yeah. As an actor. But, I don't know. Scientology might just be, like, the limit where I can still enjoy an actor. I think Will Smith is a Scientologist.
He's a vlogger on YouTube.
That's
I don't know
pretty similar, right? I think there's a connection.
That brings up an interesting point about like the separation between actors and the roles that they play.
Yeah.
It's especially with the world we live in that's kind of very in tune with social media, and actresses and actors have big social media followings. If you know everything about their life, does that take away from their trying to delve into a role in a movie and being believable?
I think it does.
Yeah.
If you just know they're like a bad person, and then they're in a, like the entire time if I'm watching a Kevin Spacey movie now, I'm only going to be thinking about Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
I can't even enjoy the movie anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer, because Kevin Spacey used to be one of my favorite actors, but no more.
Not anymore.
I'm really glad. Have I mentioned this to you before, that I saw Baby Driver like a week before all the allegations hit?
Yeah, and
Kevin
I was
Spacey.
going to watch Baby Driver, but now it's just not happening.
Kevin Spacey, one of the stars of Baby Driver.
Yeah, I want them to reshoot Baby Driver, but instead of Kevin
digitally
Spacey,
edit out Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, they just put like they like deep fake Kevin Spacey and put somebody else's face over it.
Yeah, that could work.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a part that was written specifically for him, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was it creepy?
No, I don't think it was particularly creepy. Like, this was like pre-creepy Kevin Spacey. You know what I mean?
This was
just like good actor Kevin Spacey.
But then when you look back on why he was such a good actor, like it is creepy. But that's
yeah, no, for sure.
That's another look into. Where the more you know about an actor's life, the kind of less believable things get. But
you know what? I guess it does kind of take you out of the movie if you're a big fan of an actor. Or like on the flip side, but it still makes it like more enjoyable for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even though like I like know this is what the character normally does, or like this is in their range. It's like exciting to follow actors because when they act outside their range, you're like, wow, they're really killing it right now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when like comedians play like more serious roles.
Oh yeah, you thinking about Bryan Cranston specifically?
I wasn't thinking about Bryan Cranston specifically, but that's a good example.
Bryan Cranston might be like the shining example of a comedic actor who turned to drama and like just knocked it out of the park with Breaking Bad.
With Breaking Bad, yeah.
So,
you know, I think a lot of comedians now, they're not just, well, they're trying to turn into film, and that gives us some really good movies and some really bad movies.
yeah, are you thinking of anything particular?
You know, I think when some comedians, you know, they were like on SNL for 2 seasons and then they make a movie, like sometimes like sketch comedy doesn't translate well into feature-length films.
Oh, you're just talking about like the specific like SNL movies, sort of like MacGruber and stuff like that.
You know, when like you I mean, Will Ferrell, he's hit and miss. You know, like there's a storm of movies right now that are like that star like Kate McKinnon. You know, Kate McKinnon's really, really good on SNL. She's really good.
Is Kate McKinnon doing movies? I haven't even heard any about that.
She's doing movies now, and like the one with Mila Kunis, The Spy Who Dumped Me. You know, like a bunch of other like comedy films, and they're never really that well critically received. And I think it's because the type of comedy she's good at is better translated into live, shorter segments.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I see what you mean. I don't know. I've never seen Kate McKinnon act in anything other than SNL, but I do always like to see actors branching out outside their normal bag.
I would love to see her in a more serious role, because she always plays a very like slapstick, weird, spontaneous, like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, you know who really did that correctly from SNL? Bill Hader. Yeah, you knew I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
Bill Hader's been killing it on Barry recently on HBO. Super good show. Plays a hitman.
Yeah.
It's still a very funny show, but it's like deeply serious.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's incredible. It's really good. I would definitely recommend that, Meg, if you have time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Do you want to hit any other genres for tropes?
We can go through westerns really quickly. I know you said at the beginning, kind of like the Lone Ranger.
Oh, I actually have a question for you, if you'll allow it. This might be a tangent.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any genre that would not work with zombies? Because I think adding zombies to any genre almost makes it better. Maybe not if it's overdone, like if it's on all the time, but like I can't think of a genre that wouldn't work with zombies.
Musical.
And most of actually, I think there's a play on Broadway that's like a zombie musical that just happened. I think it could be interesting.
It could. Well, that's the thing. It's like
I'm sure anything could be done well.
it's hard to say. With stuff like this, where you say like, oh, this could never work, but with the right person writing and the right person directing,
pretty much anything could work.
Pretty much anything could work.
Because I was thinking about it, and we've seen so many genres with zombies. We've seen superhero zombies, not on film yet, but we've seen Marvel has a zombies line and DC has a zombies line now. Shaun of the Dead is described as a rom-com. So that even works. We have historical fiction in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Yes.
I don't know how good that was, but that exists as a book. So, and maybe it'd be cool as a movie too. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it is a movie.
Did it become a movie also?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm just a sucker for more zombie things, so.
Yeah, we could see that.
Zombieland's like a road trip movie, you know?
Yeah.
There are straight horror zombies.
I mean, zombies themselves have just become so widespread that they are a trope in themselves. And any trope is a tool to use for movie making. And tools can be either used the right way or the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So that's like saying like any other trope could never work in any other
for
kind
sure.
of movie.
But I think zombies just really add anything to any genre. Sci-fi zombies also work.
Oh, of course.
Halo used it in like The Flood, sort of, if you remember that.
I do remember.
But zombie musical is something I'd have to look out for, I guess, because I've never seen any. And I'm trying to watch every zombie movie ever.
Every zombie movie ever made. Next podcast, we're gonna talk about it.
We could do a whole podcast on. I could just monologue on that.
I'll leave the room.
Yeah.
And you will talk through the microphones. All right. So I think we'll just do a speed round real quick. If you've said all you want to say about genres.
Yeah, I could park it for now.
Okay. So what we're gonna do for this speed round, if you are a new listener, what we usually do is try to pitch or sell movies to somebody, or not somebody, the other person in the room. And we come up with them on the fly. And today we have a fun way of doing that, and that is going to tvtropes.org, a very popular website that catalogs pretty much any trope ever made.
Yeah, I really love TV tropes. I go to it pretty much every time I watch a movie.
Yeah, so they have a very convenient button on the top of the website, and it's a random trope button. And I'm going to press this button, and I'm going to quickly make up a movie that I can pitch to Steven based on this trope and see if he will send it off to the studio or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's do it.
Pressing the button.
Okay. So I got Catapult Nightmare.
Is that a nightmare about catapults?
Whenever a character awakes from a nightmare in fiction, he will fling himself from lying down, panting and looking around frantically, and maybe even screaming.
Oh, I like that one. I think that one's funny.
I think that one is funny. I feel like every fan fiction I've ever read in my life, like they wake up in the beginning, like shoot up and like in a cold sweat.
Yeah.
So that's why I want this movie to be just a fan fiction. It has all of the fan fiction tropes. It's like some really, really obscure anime that nobody's ever heard of except this girl who writes fanfiction for it. She's the only one in the fandom, and she just writes it for herself, basically, posts it on the internet. And then one day, she wakes up in a very cold sweat after a nightmare and realizes that every single cliche that she's been writing in her writing is happening to her.
Oh, that could be pretty interesting, Meg.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I'm sure something like that's been done, right? Like a writer writes stuff and stuff happens to them.
The closest I can think is Stranger Than Fiction, starring coincidentally Will Ferrell. One of his more serious roles.
That's considered one of his best movies, right? It
is. I don't agree with the ending, but I won't spoil it with anybody. But that's obviously not his fault. He does very well in that movie. But the basic premise is that there's a writer writing his life, and he hears her narrating it, and she says he's going to die soon. He tries to stop that death.
And is she a real person? Is she like his love interest or something?
She's a real person, not his love interest, but she just finds out that every time she writes a book, she's like a famous author. The person dies at the end, but she doesn't know that they're actually real people.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool. That's almost like the button. I don't know why I connected those.
The button, like.
Every time you press the button, you get $1 million, but somebody dies.
Yeah, like Twilight Zone.
Just in the fact that you're doing something and you don't realize it's affecting others.
Yeah,
or maybe you do realize and you don't care. I guess that's the point of the button.
Yeah. 1950.
Was it 1950?
I have no idea. I feel like every time I watch the Twilight Zone, it gives me a real 1950s vibe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess it was black and white. It probably was 1950s. I don't know, 1800s.
Maybe around there. I don't know.
1720.
Cinematograph.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my pitch, signed, sealed, and delivered.
You know, I'd be interested in that. That would be cool, mainly because I can't think of anything that's done that recently. I'm sure there's horror that's done it. Maybe like a final. Would it be horror? Would this be a horror movie?
It could have horror elements, yes.
Every movie could have horror elements.
Yeah, it could have horror elements.
And should, I think.
Romance elements could have.
I think, I'm going to put it out there, I think every good movie has horror elements. Well, maybe not good. I mean, if it's pure comedy, it can still be a good comedy and not be scary.
Yeah.
But.
A lot of good movies incorporate.
I mean, even like kids' movies, like even Toy Story has horror at points.
Yeah, and Finding Nemo.
Are you familiar with the beginning of Toy Story 2 where like Woody's getting like buried like under all these mounds of toys and stuff like that? I think it's the opening with like I think his name is Zurg, the evil guy from Buzz Lightyear.
Maybe I've like blocked that out of my memory.
Yeah, Toy Story 3 had like horror elements.
Yeah, I mean there was like the misfit toy like Sid like.
Oh yeah, that was horrifying. That's still scary.
It's scary. Yeah. So I think
sometimes kids' movies are the scariest.
Yeah, like Coraline comes to mind.
Oh, I like Coraline. Coraline's good. Tim Burton's interesting. I want to see more Tim Burton stuff.
Yeah.
Any other horror kid stuff can you think of?
I think Studio Ghibli can
be
a little scary.
Like lay on the heart. Is Studio Ghibli for kids, you think though? Studio Ghibli makes the anime movies such as Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, and My Neighbor Totoro.
Their movies are often child centric.
Yeah, that's a good point. But can there be things that are child centric that are made for adults? You think?
The Shining.
I guess that is child, and all of Stephen King's stuff. Stephen King stuff is like debatable whether it's for kids or for adults. I mean, there's obviously heavily adult themes in many Stephen King works, but like all the main characters are kids for a lot of it, but then they're adults for half of it too.
Stand By Me? Is that?
Yeah, I don't really know who Stephen King's intended audience is, whether he's writing for adults or for kids. It's kind of advanced language, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're long.
They are very long, so. Well, he does have Stand By Me was a short story, I think.
Yeah, but when you think about it, and when you think about The Shining, and Carrie even.
Was Carrie? How long was Carrie?
Carrie was shorter, around 200, a little bit more than 200 pages. That's one of the shorter ones.
Like I've heard of people reading Stephen King when they're like 12, 13 and stuff like that and enjoying it and understanding it.
I can see like preteens, but definitely not any younger than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no pictures, so
there's no
it'd be impossible for anybody younger than that to read.
Any pictures?
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Be really scary with it, especially.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Is it scarier in your imagination?
I don't know. You haven't been scared by The Shining yet, correct?
I have not been scared, but I'm about
maybe you're not imagining hard enough.
150 pages. Maybe it's.
It could ramp up potentially.
It's scary.
It took like, I don't know, 600, 700 pages for it to get really scary. I think.
Yeah.
It's like just a mammoth book, though.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Should I roll the dice on this TV trope? Random trope button pressed. Belly buttonless, the trope.
Yeah, the trope.
I think, is that a picture from Kyle XY? I think that's the only thing I can think of for that.
It's from Barbie: Life in a Dream House.
Okay.
The quote is, at least.
Remember, I think there was a show called Kyle XY. I don't know if he was like a clone or something. It was like some ABC show.
Yeah.
He didn't have a belly button, and that was like in all the promos. So as he lifts up his shirt and there's no belly button.
Sure.
What do I feel about this trope? What do you think about this trope, the belly button trope?
I think it can be a minor addition to a movie. I don't think that we should.
But the thing is, whenever it's around, it's really played up to be like the thing. Like, they don't have a belly button.
Like someone has like a deep-rooted insecurity, and like the source of it is like their missing belly button.
Are there people without belly buttons in real life?
I think it's like,
I'm not talking like surgically removed belly buttons, but like if you're a tube grown baby.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If you're not,
are those even real?
I don't know. That's like it's a quote like test tube baby, but like has anybody actually like?
I would think that even in a test tube, they would need a belly button to
an umbilical cord of some sort.
Yeah, to get food from. Unless they're just in like a nutrient paste that they get it from. I don't really know how this works at all. But if I were to make a movie solely on the belly button less trope, how would I do it?
It would have to be about dolls, right? Like it couldn't be real.
No, I'm thinking of like maybe a kids movie.
Sure.
It's not even gonna be a horror. I think it's gonna be maybe there'll still just be a minor character, but it'll just be the belly button snatcher. It'll be a detective movie, and they're trying to find the belly button snatcher. He's like a criminal who wears like a black domino mask and a black and white striped shirt. And he's got a bag on his back, but instead of a dollar sign, it's got a little belly button picture. Because he takes the belly buttons and puts them in his bag. Because I think horror, I don't know. Could you even make that a horror? Could that be scary?
You know, the thing I'm thinking of is like when people get like their like kidneys stolen and they like wake up in like a
Yeah.
like a bathtub full of
Yeah,
ice.
yeah, it'd be like that. That'd be really funny. Like he has to like hit him on the head with a club, and then while they're passed out, and then they just wake up like a couple hours later and they don't have a belly button.
Like I can't picture somebody stealing like I can picture like, someone like sewing a belly button shut.
Yeah.
I can't like.
It's gonna be the belly button snatcher, and it'll have. I did say earlier that all good movies have horror elements. This one is actually surprisingly not going to have any horror elements.
Just not scary.
It's just not scary at all. You know what? I think that would be actually extremely entertaining, especially to find out his motivation. Like if he had like a really like intense motivation for doing it.
Like a really like deep seated like childhood like trauma.
Yeah, or maybe he turns out to be the good guy. Maybe I think I would employ that trope.
He was like stealing belly buttons to gift to unfortunate test tube babies.
Yeah, like he's distributing them to the belly button less.
It's a Robin Hood.
Well, the thing is, Robin Hood was taking money from people who were rich to give them to the poor, and there's nobody with two belly buttons, so it's not really a direct comparison. I mean, like, because this would be like if Robin Hood stole belly button, like
from the poor and gave it to other poor.
Yeah, everybody's kind of poor of belly button. If you
It's
think
just
that
a
everybody
redistribution
only
of wealth.
has, yeah, yeah, it's just it would be kind of funny to have a Robin Hood that only gives equal status of wealth. He just moves
It's
it
just
horizontally. It doesn't go up or down.
It's like middle class families. He just like steals a TV from one and like puts it
Yeah.
in another home.
Okay, maybe this belly button guy. I'm trying to think of a motivation that's like a good motivation.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe like I'm thinking about something with like lint. Like he's starting up a sock factory using the lint.
And then the sock factory will like clothe the homeless or something, and that's his like.
Yeah, I still don't know if that justifies stealing people's belly buttons. I don't know. Who really needs them though? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, what are they like? I mean, I guess you want consent for anything, like especially surgical procedures, but
It's not even gonna be like. It's gonna be more of like a. He just like kind of like pops it off sort of thing.
like a magician. Like
Yeah,
now you
like a
see
magician.
it, now you don't.
Yeah, it'll be like a got your nose sort of thing.
He just goes up to random people on the streets, like, got it, and then runs away.
Well, no, I would like it if it would be like a callback to that kidney thing, like you said, where like they wake up in like an ice bath and they don't have kidneys.
Is that one trope where they shoot straight up and then like in a cold sweat? After
Oh,
sleeping?
and then immediately go for their belly button, but it's not there.
It's like on the news, like everywhere. It's like stay inside,
Yeah.
protect your children.
But maybe this guy found out that belly buttons cause cancer or something like that, and then once you get rid of them, like you live a happy and fulfilled life.
He's
Maybe that's his motivation.
misunderstood.
And maybe he's like just destroying them all in a fire.
He's just throwing him into
Yeah.
the furnace.
Yeah.
Never to be seen again.
I think that's my movie. Would you watch that?
You know what? If I was in a very, very specific mood, I would probably be able to sit through it.
I'd put John Hamm as the belly button
The belly button
snatcher.
snatcher.
I want like a real like burly dude. I want him to be working out for like 8 months before he goes to this too.
He has to go through like Chris Hemsworth, like Thor from Ragnarok training.
Wouldn't it be interesting to have something that like on the surface looks like a kid's movie but is very much for adults?
Like Coraline.
Yeah, I guess Coraline. Yeah, just something with like a very like almost childish plot on the surface, but like when you think about it, it's just like nuts. I'm not talking about this thing specifically.
I mean, I think pretty much every Pixar remake right
Yeah,
now
no, good
is
point.
for adults, not for children.
Yeah, did you see that one meme going around about The Incredibles 2? Like, if I see a single person born after 2005 in this theater, I'm gonna lose it. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
The belly buttonless trope is something I would never have considered a trope, but now that I'm thinking more about it, it is absolutely a trope. And there's a humongous list of... Well, there's a real life section under TV tropes. We gotta find out if this is real.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a joke. You want to hear it?
I want to hear the joke.
If you go to heaven and look for Adam and Eve, how will you know which people are them?
They don't have belly buttons?
They're the only two without belly buttons.
So wait, Adam and Eve are in the real life section?
They're in the real life section.
Okay, God exists.
So, thank you, TV shows.
Proven.
Checkmate, atheists.
Explain this, atheist.
Czech model Karolina Kurkova. It says somewhat in quotes. Somewhat famously has no navel. She has never disclosed exactly why. Test tube.
Yeah, I it's probably one of those things where they like where models do like body mods to make them like stand out in the industry. Like when someone like dyes one of their eyes blue.
Sometimes twins, if they're conjoined, only one of them will have a belly button.
Oh yeah.
That's scary.
That is, well, conjoined twins
and normal twins.
Normal
both
twins.
Scary.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that is really interesting.
Yeah. So we're nearing the 47-minute mark. And just a little recap from today's show. We went through the definition of tropes, some of our favorite tropes and genres like cartoon, spy, western, horror, all that. And
it's mainly zombies for me.
It's mainly zombies, you know. And I think we did a pretty good job, creating movies based on the random tropes that we got. The belly button snatcher and the
Mine's gonna be called Rise of the Belly Button Snatcher. It's gonna be the first part of a trilogy. No, it's gonna be called Belly Button Snatcher Begins. The Lint Knight, and then the Lint Knight Rises.
Okay, we don't have time to unpack all of that, but I'd like to thank our one viewer currently who stuck through us through the whole entire stream. You may be a bot, you may not be.
You know, I'm realizing that might be us. There's a chance that everybody just has one viewer all the time.
Okay, well, thanks for crushing my self-esteem with that.
Yeah.
This is our first time streaming on Twitch. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. I'm Meg.
And I'm, as always, Steve.
It does not change. And this is
Steve Eternal.
What If? Movies that don't exist.
Thank you
for listening.